Karen. Hi, everybody. Okay, I don't know. I'm going to assume that most people here today know that ITC stands for Instrumental Trans Communication. And this is using instruments to communicate with spirit. EVP is one form. Yes, that's the voice end. That's the audible end. But because I've already done my EVPs for many of you, I'm going to start today with what's been my newer interest, which has been working with the trans images. And then we will do some EVP, we'll go through some EVPs later. But I had been, working with EVP, and I've always been mentored by Sonia Rinaldi, who's been doing this, all of this for 30 years, and I've been in it since 2016. So she's really been a wonderful example for me of what's possible. And I saw that she had done some images. I didn't think it was something I was ever going to do. And then on this global meeting, and I don't remember when it was that we had Isabel Duchenne on, maybe a year ago, Wendy, but we had a guest on from, I believe, Belgium. She's a medium. And she said to everybody, oh, you can get trans images by making a video of your very own glasses. Now, this is just the simplest thing of all. It didn't mean that I needed to get any equipment I didn't already have. So one night I said, all right, and I put my phone on video and I put my glasses on and I started making a video. And this is the first image that I ever got in which the first one I could really see. I believe that it could be my first poodle, standard poodle, Genevieve. Some of you see it better if it's much smaller, but this was the first image I saw. Although, oh my goodness, now I'm seeing a face here, which I never saw before. A darker face, eyes. It's very interesting because you see more as time goes on. But this was my very first image. And so I was so excited. I started trying some more. And sometimes it would look like someone did a drawing rather than taking a photograph. You can see there's a face here. Often easy to see because the eyes will be often quite telling. There's another face here, which I'm assuming you can see. It's kind of on its side. But this looks more like maybe somebody took some Crayolas or some chalk, and did some kind of charcoal. Now, interestingly enough, these faces, we were in a Zoom meeting and I was seeing my own reflection and I saw on my glasses, I thought I saw a little face. So I grabbed my, I took my phone and I saw a lot of reflection on my glasses. So I decided to just video for a minute. And lo and behold, when I went back over the video, there were numerous more faces than these. And these two look feminine to me. There were some that looked like they had beards, but they were of a similar style, more like almost a photograph than someone had done a drawing. And here's some miscellaneous interesting ones. If you look at this, you can see an eye. Interestingly, the lips look like there's a reddish color. You can see a faint face, as well as here, almost a profile and an eye. And then like this fella here, kind of like a black and white from a newspaper cutting, came through like that. And then this one here kind of looks like, kind of looks like a guy with a mustache and a beard and a hat. So those were those were the first ones I ever did with the eyeglasses. It was a little tedious always filming my own face, however, and always having to deal with my own face in the equation. So I thought, well, how in the world are they doing this steam stuff, So I started looking into it, and this is all that I use, okay? Sonia told me to get myself a vaporizer. This is a diffuser. This is a colored light. These are basically the three things that I use. And this is my room. I have a little altar. how incongruous, but right behind my altar is a nice big flat screen TV. Pretty silly, but that's the way it is. In the meantime, the flat screen TV provided me with a black background. And I don't know if this helps or hinders, but also a reflective background. So what I do is I carry this little fella over, and you see this candle, it's right here. I place him right here on my altar, up on a few books, and start running the steam. And there you can see me with my phone making a video of the steam. Now, obviously, when you see what some of the images that will come up, you will know that we have to be working with spirit, because I have absolutely no clue how to take steam from a vaporizer and turn it into this. Now, I hope you can see the face. I'm making it small so you can see it. Sonia thought the nose looked a little 3D, like it was coming out at us. Eyes, mouth, it's a little funky, but it's a face. And going on down, now this looks like one that looks like a drawing. If you look at this face, it really looks like a drawing to me, like some kid did some kind of sketch rather than a photo. You can see lips. The only person I possibly know in spirit that it would remind me of is the late Jane Roberts, who was the medium who spoke for Seth. I was one of her students, and she had these very dark bangs that came down over her forehead, very distinct eyes. But who knows? Now, this picture, very important, means a lot to me. I don't know if you can see this beautiful, beautiful girl. And I hope this doesn't bring tears, but my dear friend Annette, who's on today, her beautiful daughter Jennifer crossed over a number of years ago. And this looks to me, actually, if Jennifer and Annette were combined into one woman, they would be this lovely girl. This is the bottom of the flat screen TV. So, things get cut off. But I do feel that this is an image of our beautiful Jennifer. But oddly enough, if you look, there seems to be a face here. I see a white mustache, like a guy that would almost be like covering her out, Xing the other one out. And I find that this becomes more and more like magic eye. Karen didn't know what that was when I mentioned it to her, but most people in this country probably know those books where you were supposed to kind of throw your focus off and you could see different images coming out from the picture. And that's what I find with these images. Like I'll see one image and then I'll see another image. And if I focus on that image, then I can't see that image. And you will see more and more as we go on, one laid on top of the next. Now these are interesting. This one looks like, to me, like a Van Gogh drawing. It's got like all the markings of like being just a sketch that someone did. And this fella here is very pleasant. I don't know if that's an image, but he sure doesn't look very happy. Maybe he's just had the first signs of corona, but this guy looks quite pleasant. So sometimes they just come in more like a piece of art. Now this guy is easier to see when I expand him. I don't know if you're seeing that face, mouth, nose, two eyes, hair going wild, but that's a very interesting face there also. Let's keep going down. Interesting. This looks like to me a man profile, but then there's clearly another person here, another face right there, and I don't know if they're connecting and kissing, or if you then look, you might see an eye and a nose here. And it gets more and more confusing as you go on, because then if you look, you might see two eyes and the nose here. It's like they're embedded one on top of the other. There's something very, very faint here, as if showing me that this spirit realm is such a different dimension than the physical realm, where we're also, a three-dimensional. Here it's like, I don't know, it's just, depth within depth within depth. It's just awesome. Now this one's interesting. You mostly are going to see the eyes, but there was a while there where Sonia and I were just comparing and saying, my goodness, the eyes, you know, the eyes were always so very intense. Oh, this is just a face. But again, another one of those pictures where when I zoomed in, is this a face? Is this a creature? Is that someone's pup? Um, you can get lost doing this. One night I remember saying to Karen, we zoomed together, and I said, I think I'm getting pareidolia sickness because I was starting to see so many faces. If I turned it around, if I turned it upside down, I saw a whole other scenario. This face was, you know, it started like this, and as I went along, it got a little clearer. Maybe looks a little like Tesla. I don't know. This looks like a Cupid doll to me. And this looks like something that Oz with, you know, from the movie The Wizard of Oz, when he kept putting up those faces, and the great and powerful Oz, you know, is coming. And skipping down, I don't know if this is it's hard to see until you see it, but there's an eye missing here. We lost some of this, but it's a very beautifully lips, nose, and eye face here. Whoa, 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 whoa. And this picture has a number of faces. This looks like a face. This is certainly a face. Is that one right in the middle of the two of them? And if you keep expanding these, you find more and more images. Just, well, now here's an example. Here's a lovely woman's face, kind of if you look in that purple color range. Look below, look at that gentleman with that big mustache. And if you look just to the left of her pretty face, well, I'm not seeing it as clearly now. There's sometimes I see another man. There's so many faces in here if you were to take the time. But here we've definitely got a face. But then here's this lovely woman in purple. And this kind of blew my mind because of this lovely girl's profile. But then all this other stuff on here, are these faces? Yeah, I think I mean, it's just, it's wild. Moving on down. For example, here, you can all see the face on the left, lovely lady's face. Here I have encircled it because if you just don't look at her eyes, but you look here, we may very well have another face. So that's why I'm saying they come in one on top of another. This is very interesting. Many of you know Sonia. One day I was going through my recordings and I saw a face that looked so much like Sonia's. I hope you can see it. I sent it to her and she was like, oh my God, have I died? That's me. Because although it seems to be covered up by other faces, that looks to be Sonia. And very interesting because as soon as she got to know me, she started getting images of many of the kids that were in the prayer registry. Almost like on the other side, they know who's in cahoots with who. So they knew if they sent me a picture of Sonia, I would see it and then I would show it, bring it to her. So I think that's very interesting. If you look at this one, here's again another example. I see a face profile here, the Sonia face. And if you keep expanding this, there are so many other faces within that. So it is very fascinating and very simple to do. Now, my favorite one to date is this one. I just love it. And do you know, I was so shocked when I saw it. What I do is I go through them on the computer, and if I find something that I want to keep a frame, I take a picture of it on my phone. And the next morning when I got up and went through my phone, I saw this and I was so moved by it. It looks like Harry Edwards, my healer, when he was a very young man. And I thought to myself, well, I know I didn't invite a strange man to the house, sit him down in my room, turn on a red light and take a picture. But I was very shocked to see this for some reason. And I think that it may have been from Harry, who is my guide. And so I'm going to show you some interesting things now. I was with Sonia we were presenting, I guess we were in Orlando last year with We Don't Die. And I see her, we went out to dinner one night and she's shooting her camera out the glass window at other buildings. And I said, are you thinking you can get trans images just from taking pictures? And she said, well, sometimes you can with reflections on glass. So I'm going to move this for now to here because I want to focus. Well, let's just focus on this first picture here. I was out to dinner for my birthday, so that's February 5th. We went out to dinner, and I was in a restaurant that was all glass, and outside was a building that was glass with street lights and stuff. So I said, I'll try a Sonia, and I took a shot, and I thought, well, those could be faces, you know? Wow. And as I looked even closer, I was like, oh, you know, even in some of the darker spots, do we have a face? You know, I mean, are there faces everywhere? So I decided to do some exploring. So this is the man who was responsible for my healing, Harry Edwards. And I went to England to see him 2 years after my healing was complete, to meet him. And we were standing outside the sanctuary and a picture was taken. This was taken in 1973. And after all this, I decided to dissect my pictures and see if there was anything interesting on them. Take a look at that. Is that a face? Is that a face that's been in this picture since 1973? Or is it an overactive imagination? I'd like to take opinions on that one. But I think that's very interesting. And so I thought, well, let's explore one more. So right here, you're going to see my son, Danny. 2 weeks before he passed, him and his friend, Max was coming home and there was a deer that a car had hit and run and it had passed, but it was still warm. So Max brought it home and Danny and him decided they were going to, you know, cut the meat and freeze it. And they decided to make beef jerky. This is like 2 to 3 weeks before Danny crossed making beef jerky. I was looking at the picture the other day and I said, well, anything's possible. There is smoke. They use that for ITC. So I went in really closely. Now, can any of you see this face? It's very faint. I don't know if you can. It's quite faint. There's eyes, nose, lips, quite faint. Sorry about that. I wish I could make it less faint. But interestingly, Mr. Edwards has that nose and those really sweet little lips. But unfortunately, it's not really clear. But what I'm trying to say, and I think it was Sheila Lowe who has a stone that has the most incredible face that she discovered on it. So it's time that we start paying attention because these faces are everywhere. And so what's next? God only knows. But what's next for us will be some EVP. So let me stop sharing for a minute because I have to take down this slideshow and bring up the EVP slideshow. So I have to go to this and I have to go to audio. And here we go. We've got it. Let's go back to screen share. And let's share you this. Okay, so, and again, for those of you that want some instructions or some help at sheriperl.com, there is the Prayer Registry, which I hope any of you who've lost children will want to register your children for prayer. It's free. And then there's a link that says the EVP line, which takes you to a page that has instructions. Karen's an expert at those instructions, better than me. And we have helped a handful of people get set up. But by set up, I mean that there's many ways to do this. You certainly don't need to do it on your computer and you don't need to use the same sound source we use. But what I use for most of my EVP work is my computer, some sound, and that's Audacity. It's a recording program. You can use any recording program that you want to. And for example, this is gibberish, which I got originally from Craig, who was the first person to turn me on to this stuff. And here's a sample of like a male gibberish. It sounds This is a sample of gibberish. Male gibberish. Sometimes we use female gibberish. We run that. We ask a question. We see if we get an answer. Okay, this is the one I want to play for you. You'll hear the gibberish. You'll hear me ask my son, "Can you say I love you, Ma?" And then you'll hear him say, "I love you, Ma."
Danny, can you say I love you, Ma? Danny, can you say I love you, Ma?
So, I guess most of you here today also know, is the sun killing you? I would think everybody in the group today kind of knows what electronic voice phenomenon is. If there's anybody that wants, more of an explanation, I can simply say that it's a way that we speak with spirit. We provide sound. We invite spirit in. They use thought, and we don't know how the hell they do that because we don't know how to do it, but they do. And they use thought to impress their thought into the sound we provide. Somehow they're able to alter that sound so that instead of being and just gibberish, we are fortunate enough to get back these answers. For example, here's one from one of my readings. A mom asks her son, "Are you in heaven?"
Are you in heaven? Are you in heaven?
And here's one, this is very cute. She asks if he messes with the computers and the lights, and you'll just hear a, "Oh yeah."
Do you mess with the computer, electronics, and lights when you visit?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Should I do it again?
Do you mess with the computer, electronics, and lights when you visit?
Oh yeah. Of course. It goes without saying. And then a week or two ago, I decided to try to make my own gibberish because we have a little problem with gibberish. And that is that words and phrases can get embedded in the gibberish. So once you've used the same gibberish multiple times, you can have somebody else. I don't want to give a mom somebody else's "I love you," And yet we do know that words get embedded. I didn't understand this in the beginning when I was sending clips to Craig, and he said, "You have a lot of names in here, but I think the Damien was already in the gibberish." And I said, "The what?" And he explained that words can get embedded. So my son, who's also a lawyer like my husband and very logical thing, he said, "Mom, I've got the solution. You just get fresh gibberish from that website when you want to do a reading. And if you always download fresh gibberish and make a copy each time, a new copy, it won't have the embedment in it." And I said, "Yeah, well, I tried that. But as soon as I got it into my EVP folder, it took on Cora Cora Migdol Doggy, which is my daughter's dog. When she wasn't married yet, her last name was still Migdol. And in my gibberishes, there's a Cora Cora Migdol Doggy. And so, it showed me how the spirit world has laws that completely defy the logic that we live by. Because to my sense, but Mom, that's not possible. If you take gibberish fresh from the AREI site and you've never used it before, it couldn't possibly have that on it. I said, "Well, not possible in physical reality, but as soon as it entered my EVP audio file, it picked up a lot of the embedments that I had gotten from former readings." So I decided, okay, I'll make some new gibberish. That's got to be a good way to eliminate the problem. There is a software called EVP Maker. So you talk into it, and then you push a button, and it scrambles it. So I did some gibberish of my own voice, and then I decided to make a recording, and I asked my son if he had a message for me.
Do you have a message for me, sweetheart?
Well, the speaker isn't working, so we're just gonna.
Do you have a message for me, sweetheart?
Be grateful. We are here.
Be grateful. We are here. How incredible. And so usually when we work, we will work with that. Here's another from the gibberish.
I was Jerry.
This is from the gibberish I made. Jerry's my husband.
I was Jerry.
Pretty clear. So usually we work with human vocal gibberish because in my experience, human vocal gibberish, because it contains human vocal, creates a more human sounding EVP. Then I started experimenting with foreign languages, and Sonia gave me some gibberish she had of Konstantin Radov's voice, who she calls Mr. German. So that was German gibberish, and then I was talking about, I asked him, we were probably doing our first AREI conference, and I asked, questions about the conference, and I do believe that the German translated into English saying, let us seek healing. And then, of course, my favorite of all is little Lorenzo speaking in Portuguese. And me asking my son to say something in English to let me know if I should use this. And he'll say, I speak in English.
Say something to me in English to let me know I should use this.
I speak in English.
We know that language can definitely be translated. This was also from Lorenzo. Your mom's there.
The one's there. The one's there.
So we know that translating is certainly possible. But then I began experimenting with many other forms of sound sources, just purely electronic sound without any human vocal. And just to give you an experience of what it sounds like, here would be a sound source. This is something called Spiritron. And then here's an EVP made with it that says, you can have Danny, but he sounds like a robot. So the EVP is going to take on the sound very much of the sound source that you play. And what's really a lot of fun is that here's Danny using an electronic sound source saying, I am Danny. And he definitely sounds like a alien. I am Danny. But what's really fun is I did an experiment where I tried to say, let me see if I can find where that is. Yeah, I love yous. And okay, here it is. I decided to try to procure I love you with as many different sound. I love you procured from different sound sources. So here it is from something that Keith Clark calls Stream 1. I love mommy. This is finger scratch. This is what I do when I scratch my finger on the side of the computer by the microphone. My real name is Cheryl. I was just never called that. Anyway, this is Cheryl, I love you in Spiritron. I love you, mommy, in Spiritron C. I love you, water going down the bathtub. So here's the human vocal. So as you see, the human vocal has more of a human sound, but they can change sound of a bathtub into words. So it's so much fun to just experiment and see what can be used, what sound sources will actually work. I'm going to introduce, I just thought Julie King is on today. Julie, I had done a reading for Julie, and she had gotten an EVP from her son that said, your favorite son. And she was going to explain to us why this had so much meaning, that apparently that was his big joke, that he was the favorite son. So it's quite interesting. Now, Julie felt that she had a couple, I believe, EVPs that were evidential, and she was willing to share with us today. Julie, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, I'll just the one that Sheri was mentioning was I think it was around about the time when Harry Potter was really popular, and they used to call him the chosen one. And I think because Adam was just so easy, like we never had any trouble from him. His father and younger brother started calling him the chosen one. It was like it was a G up, you know, like they were just mucking around. But Adam sort of used to tell everyone, I'm the favourite, I'm the favourite. And then Sheri did my EVPs. It wasn't very long actually after Adam went on ahead of us. And I looked through the list, there was about 49 replies from the 5 questions. And then I saw, it's your favourite son. So I knew that's what he was talking about. And there was one other time we were having a prayer registry meeting. I don't know if you remember. I know, Barbara, you were probably there. And we started hearing noises in the background. So Sheri put the Audacity on and started recording it. And each mum asked a question, and then she read through it. When I got the replies back, there was one that came back from, and it said, I need you beside me. And I listen, even now I listen to it over and over again. It's Adam's voice to a T.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julie, for sharing that.
Thank you. Okay, this is absolutely mind-blowing. I'm so thrilled to see this. So I guess my question is about the gibberish, and I mean, this is actually a kind of a technical question, and you know, maybe Craig would know this. But how is the gibberish generated? I mean, there's a gibberish. You can get clips of gibberish like on the AREI site, or what?
Well, first of all, the gibberish that Craig has provided is downloadable from the slideshow that's part of the EVP line slideshow that I made. So if you go to sheripearl.com and you go to the page that says the EVP line, you'll come down to where it says the EVP slideshow. And if you, it's a free download, and it's half of the screen is for PCs and half of the screen is for Macs, and it gives you instructions. One of them is to download both the female and the male gibberish. But if you have difficulty, the person who can help you better than me with that part is Karen, because she's really got the slideshow abbreviated and simplified. So she's always around to help too. But Craig, you can probably download it from his website too, right, Craig? So so you can get it from numerous, oh Lily, come here, come here. You can get it from numerous sources, but Greg has it, this slideshow has it, but you know, you can also get gibberish probably on YouTube. I mean, we can use so many things for sound. One of the most effective things I have used is scratching my fingernail on my computer right by where the input mic is. I've gotten some very clear EVPs. So gibberish is wonderful.
Course of Sheri giving her presentation, I figured out that it's generated by scrambling people talking.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank.
Hi, Sheri. Thank you so much for about a year and a half ago, you gave me a recording from my Maddie, and I appreciate it. I've been trying to duplicate what you do, and I'm not successful. I have downloaded the Audacity. I'm very low tech. I just don't have a lot of knowledge in that area. Could you, I did look at your website. I'm not sure exactly what to do. You downloaded the Audacity.
So if you haven't done it from there, go back over and take Audacity off your computer, and then do it again. If you still have problems, you know how to get in contact with me. I will walk you through it. Okay?
Great, thank you.
Karen has helped a lot of people get started because it is hard. I'm not real technologically advanced at all.
Yeah.
I had a computer tech fella set me up, and then I paid him to make this slideshow, and Karen knows it better than me. So none of us are all that. All you're really doing is playing sound and making a recording of it. It's
Yep.
really simple. Like back in the days when we'd get out our LPs and our little cassettes and we'd make a recording, that's all you're doing. The reason this is phenomenal and is a phenomenon is because spirit works with us to change the sound we play into actual words. If spirit wasn't doing their part, when we played back the recording, we only hear the same gibberish that we played.
So my son communicates via, similar to how Sheri was showing before, with taking pictures and being able to see very clear evidence of his face, and not only with me but with his aunts, you know, his cousins. It's just incredible, and as well with light orbs. But I have not begun to understand how I can record him without having the technology. Can you do this?
I just wanted to know if Harry Edwards ever played the violin.
I don't know. I never
You
read a
don't-
book that said he did, but I wouldn't have put it past him. He was genteel enough.
Okay, it's just listening to the same lecture that gave you the idea with the steam and everything. I just took some idle photos of a crystal that I've got on my desk, and a very clear, I can't share it unfortunately, a very clear young man playing the violin, and he had this like hair that swept over the, and when you showed the photos of Harry Edwards, I thought, wow, that's sort of similar, really. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. That's so cool. I was talking about the fact that it's so interesting that when I do readings for parents, some of the EVPs that to me seem the absolutely strangest, most random, they don't make sense, are the ones where the parent goes, oh my word, that's just amazing. For example, I got one where it said, Nick's in trouble. And I didn't know if Nick was this kid's little brother. I sure didn't want to send his mother bad news, but I figure, well, I have to trust the kids. So I sent it, and then the mom contacted me and said, oh, how like Christopher. Nick is his cousin. He just got married last weekend. So he gets on and he goes, Nick's in trouble. So I find that it is so interesting, the kinds of ways that those in spirit have to let us know that it's them and not just a generic I love you, but something that only their mother would know. For example, when Kirsten, a woman named Kirsten, got an EVP that said, I'll make you lunch, I thought that was really bizarre, until she told me that the last time she saw her son, she'd called him at work and said, would you like me to make you lunch? And he said, sure. So she drove to work. It was pouring rain, so he got in her car and he ate his sandwich with her, and that was the last time that she saw him alive. And so there you have him saying, I'll make you lunch. So
I just was inquiring if Sheri wanted to mention that if you're doing an experiment with video, that you need to examine your video frame by frame. And I believe it's 30, I don't know that it's 60, but it's at least 30 frames per 1 second of video. Correct?
You're absolutely right. And the same with EVP. I go through the recordings 2 seconds at a time, or a second at a time, because otherwise you're going to miss something. So definitely making the recordings both ways, with the steam or with an EVP recording, is the easy part, because it only takes a few minutes and you just do what you do. It's the time consuming part, which is the auditing.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the time to put in, you could have a recording chock full of goodies, but you have to put in the time to find them. That's definitely true.
Yes, I've heard Sonia and also the gal that was just talking say that they heard the real voice of their child or someone else come through. But if you're using gibberish or you're using a medium for that voice, how could it actually sound like your child?
Craig, would you like to answer that?
Sure. What is happening is that they're not actually speaking. They're impressing the electromagnetism on the hard drive. So that's the activity they're going through. And sometimes they can recall their own voice, and they can then duplicate that, and they impress that voice on the electromagnetism. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's a machine that they're using at the station, and they'll send it through and it sounds electronic because they're using the machine. But they can impress their own voice upon it, and they're actually doing that. So it's your son actually impressing his voice on it. And often they don't, but they can do that. It just depends on whether they're doing the impression themselves.
I just refer back to something that was sent to me privately. They obviously don't want to speak out to themselves. Is that just because children, or anyone for that matter, has gone spirit life, does not mean they automatically know how to communicate with us. They have to learn. And as with anyone, some are slow learners, some are fast learners. So not everyone knows how to do it. So just as you are learning from this side, they are learning from that side. They get a lot of help because, there's other kids that have done it before them. They do need to learn. So be mindful of the fact that just because you've transitioned doesn't mean that you are all knowing. Okay, so that's the first one out of it. There is another question about someone who missed the first part of this. Can we review the whole meeting? You cannot review the whole meeting because we cut it down to around about 35 minutes. So we have to edit it because most people couldn't be bothered even to listen for longer than 30 minutes. So you will never, ever get the whole meeting and the questions and answers. The only way you will get that is if you attend a meeting, and then you get the whole lot. But we do have them permanently stored. Wendy Zammit has given you a link there of where they're permanently stored at victorzammit.com/Zoom. And that will be all the meetings that we have recorded.